Hello and welcome to Outland Japan. I'm your host, Peter Carnell, a travel guide based in northern Nagano, and this is a podcast that takes you outside the big cities into rural, regional, and the wilds of Japan. In this episode, we venture to Kyoto, but not the Kyoto, the temples, the geisha, gion, the expensive kaiseki and tea ceremonies that most people know. Instead, we're headed to rural Kyoto Prefecture to experience life in the countryside with Vincent Ng. Vince documents his life in rural Kyoto on Instagram as Kyoto Insider, and in doing so, explores the interconnection of food chain origins while showing off his lifestyle. He is hands-on in that exploration, embracing all aspects of rural life. Fishing, farming, and hunting all feature heavily and reflect the realities and opportunities of life in rural Japan, and how food is produced, procured, and traded within those communities, while also reflecting the idyllic beauty of that part of Kyoto Prefecture. Vince is actively involved in the revitalisation of his village, performing many roles and working to attract prospective migrants as a rural tourism and migration consultant. In addition, he is the managing director of Ipanshadan Houjin Minka Preservation Society, a name that will be familiar to everyone who has listened to episode 43 of the pod, in which I interviewed Lauren Scharf, a board member of Minka Preservation Society, an organisation dedicated to the conservation of Japan's wonderful heritage and historic homes. If you've not had the chance to listen to that interview, make sure to do so. A very big thank you to Vince for taking time from his busy schedule and for sharing the images used in support of this episode. I hope this episode furthers your interest in getting out of the cities and into rural Japan, whether that be to travel or to make that change to living in the countryside. Vince is a fantastic advocate for the lifestyle. Once again, his profile on Instagram is Kyoto Insider. You'll find a link in the show notes, along with a link to the Minka Preservation Society website. The podcast website is outlandjapan.com, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube by searching Outland Japan. Please make sure to also follow or like the show on whichever podcast app you're using, and if you're enjoying it, please do take the time to rate and review it. I can't say just how much each review is appreciated and helps in the podcast apps promoting it to others, and in the end, that motivates me to keep doing it. Now on to the interview. From time to time, you might hear the jingling and feline investigations of Vince's cat in the background. I hope you enjoy. My guest on the podcast today is Vincent Ng, otherwise known as the Kyoto Insider, who on Instagram documents his life in the countryside of Kyoto Prefecture, and in doing so, shows a very different side to what most people think of when they hear of Kyoto. So Vince, thanks for joining me, and how are you today?
Yeah, doing great. It's finally spring, so getting ready for the next year.
Yeah, things are warming up very quickly here. Same where you are?
Very much so, finally.
Yeah, it's been a long, cold winter. As I just mentioned, you are the Kyoto Insider. So let me start there by asking exactly where in Kyoto Prefecture are you, and where is that in relation to Kyoto City, Tokyo, for example?
Well, it takes about 2.5 hours from Tokyo to Kyoto City. And once you get to Kyoto, you can take a bus or you can take a train, another 2 hours, still within Kyoto, because Kyoto is actually a very big prefecture, outside of Kyoto City to the Japan seaside of Kyoto, known as Miyazu City. And I'm right in between two famous landmark areas, Amano Hashidate and the Ine boathouses, so right along the seaside.
Yeah, which I was very interested to learn that. So you're very coastal, which I think most people don't think of when they think of Kyoto.
I didn't even know Kyoto was even connected to the sea when I was living in Kyoto City. So that shows how off the beaten track this area is, even for people for Kyotoites or even travelers. Kyoto Prefecture does have an entire Japan seaside coast. There's a lot of agriculture and fishery activity happening here. Where I live is just up the mountain, about a couple minutes drive from the sea. So I am in a mountain environment, but as soon as I leave the village, I see the ocean in front of me. It's very coastal, small hamlets, small fishing villages, and ports along the way. Narrow valleys, not much arable land, but definitely very strong fisheries community.
And so it's the Sea of Japan, North Coast, of Japan, which means that you must get some decent winter weather there because that's the direction that comes from.
Winters are colder than Kyoto city proper. Compared to the city, it's about 4 to 5 degrees colder in general. So yeah, it is cold, but cold means good seafood. It's a good trade-off in that sense. But in the summers, that makes it much more bearable compared to Kyoto City.
What drew you to living in that part of Japan?
In all honesty, I just like the ocean. I wanted to be in Kyoto Prefecture, where I could still access all my networks, my friends' business networks in Kyoto City, but I didn't want to be too far away. This whole area, northern side of Kyoto Prefecture along the seaside, we call Umi no Kyoto, so the seaside of Kyoto. Really, it was connected to Kyoto City around 20 years ago. So even for Kyotoites, before that, they would have to drive double the amount of time, almost 4 hours, just to get to the seaside of Kyoto Prefecture. For a lot of people, they still don't even know this is part of their prefecture. They assume it's part of Fukui or Hyogo or something different, actually.
I imagine where you are, Vince, is very different in terms of lifestyle from Kyoto City itself. It's a city which has a very long and proud history. The people are known to be very proud of their history. And to my understanding, you actually began your profile as the Kyoto insider while living in Kyoto City and then transitioning out to where you are today. Could I ask about that change? How was it to go from living in Kyoto City to where you now are?
Living in Kyoto City, of course, I live the standard Kyoto life. Kyoto is a very cultural city. Very much involved with various aspects in terms of omatsuri, the geisha culture, and the historical culture, and of course the craftsmanship. In this area, it's obviously much more agrarian. You're kind of out of this system. Things that you don't think are normal, things that are extraordinary are actually normal in these neck of the woods. Certain things, for example, access to food sources are much more direct. If you're buying fish, you get it from the fishing boats. If you're buying vegetables, you get it from the fields. If you're getting chicken or meat, you get it directly from the farms. Everyone knows everyone. There's really only one street that connects the entire Miyazu area. So it's one lane. So you're driving down one way and the other side's driving across the other way. So you'll see your friends, you'll see your buddies, and you just wave and you pass each other. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone goes to more or less the same places. For people that, like that type of tranquility and community, then this is it's quite a good place to live.
Vince, may I ask, where are you originally from and how did you end up in Japan?
So I was born in Hong Kong. My parents were working at the Bank of America, both of them, and they got transferred to the Toronto branch. So around 1.5, I went with them together. Of course, they're not going to leave me. So we immigrated to Toronto. And we became Canadian citizens, so I have dual Hong Kong and Canadian citizenship. I graduated from university, and I got my first job in Japan as an English teacher, as most people probably would use to enter Japan.
yeah. For sure.
Nothing special, but from then on, just kept living in Japan. I really just wanted to stay 1 year. I had dreams of moving to Korea and China after, but it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like a game, like in the sense that you can level up. And the more you level up, the more you learn, the more you can access. And 17 years later, actually, I'm still here.
So it really is home. And
yeah,
you are another of the, I'm going to assume, happy Kominka owners that I've interviewed on my podcast. And I know that listeners to my podcast are always very interested to hear the stories of people who have found Kominka, traditional farmhouses, traditional homes in Japan, how they came to do that, and the story of the house that they have. So again, if you wouldn't mind me asking, could you describe your Kominka and what do you know of its history?
My Kominka journey is a long one. I was very happy to find my Kominka. I've searched high and low all across Kyoto Prefecture. And even within Miyazu city itself, I've seen dozens of properties. And I've gone through the Akiya banks. But the one that I settled on, the one that I live in now, it was not listed. And through just being persistent and constantly telling people I'm looking, that word of mouth filtered throughout the networks locally, and local people told me that there was an empty house in this particular village that is not on the Akiya Bank, and I found that place, and this is where I'm living at the current moment. The Kominka itself, we would classify as a noka, so a farmhouse. So it's not a machiya, it's not even a kayabuki. It's a noka in the sense that it is a property with various structures. There's the omoya, the main house, where the main head of the family would have lived. There is the inkyo, which is the retirement house, whereas the previous generation, the retired farmer, basically the grandfather after retirement would retire to. And it's a smaller house, but it's quite nice too. And then next to that, there is a garage, a shako, and it snows here, so you need a proper roof to protect your vehicles. There is a kura, an earthen wall kura, to store various farm equipment to preserve food. And in the back, there is a gyusha, which is a cow's house, or we call barn, basically in English. So in the past, they did have an ox, which was used for plowing the fields, and that was the house for the ox and various other farm equipment. And right behind the house, immediately attached to the property, there are 3 large fields. In terms of size, I would say, maybe 2 tennis court size multiplied by 3. It's great to have fields where it's visible and connected to the property. You don't have to walk far away, so you can see what's going on every day.
Yeah.
There's a little pond as well, where they used to have koi, and the koi pond actually filters into the fields, which actually used to be a rice field, but they changed it to a vegetable field. There are rice fields up further throughout the valley. So I own some rice fields, not directly attached to the property, but another 3 or 4 minutes drive away. There's also a mountaintop field where I grow trees, and I own about 2 or 3 mountains, which I just haven't been able to access. I don't even know where they are, actually. Yeah. They're somewhere there. When you say a nokai, it's not just a house, it's a property.
Sounds amazing. And for anyone who's listening, I really do encourage you to get on to your Instagram profile, Kyoto Insider, and have a look, because you document very beautifully the area and the lifestyle up there. And, I'm sure there's realities that we're going to come to in terms of what's involved in living up there. But to say it looks idyllic is pretty accurate. It does look like a really beautiful part of Japan. It's very interesting. I want to drop back there though, Vince, because you said initially you were looking at the Akiya Bank, but that's not how you came to find your house. This seems like a really common story for a lot of people, that they start looking at the Akiya banks. These are the databases maintained by municipalities around Japan of often unoccupied or not quite unoccupied properties. And I find a lot of people that I talk to who currently own a kaminko or other property in Japan have started with the Akiya Bank, but ultimately found their property through local channels and connections through the local community. And that's how that happened for you. Is that right?
That's 100% correct. I don't want to discourage people from going through the Akiya Bank. It's a great way to start, and it's a great finish for many people as well. I know many people who have actually gotten their property through the Akiya Bank. The Akiya Bank clears out a lot of major issues, especially with land titles and deeds. So in that sense that, you can buy it immediately if you're ready to buy it. And that's also connected. Akiya banks are usually connected to local subsidies and various funds in terms of renovation, or if you live in Japan, residency related subsidies. So Akiya Bank is a great resource, and it's definitely the first step to start to get into the community. But for every one Akiya Bank, there's 10 more that are not listed. So if you have that time and energy and resource to get acquainted with your community before even moving there, getting the lowdown, the hidden information is worth it for some people too.
When you found and moved into your kominka, how prepared were you for the reality of life in the Japanese countryside?
Unlike a lot of, I would say, more recent kominka enthusiasts, especially post-COVID, I was lucky in the sense that I was able to experience kominka life actually prior to moving to the countryside. So it was a very unique situation. I was living in Kyoto City. I was running my business at that time, but actually I was renting a kabuki property with some fields attached to it for almost 2 years just before COVID. Due to that, I would say in hindsight, a lucky opportunity. I was able to delve a little bit into the countryside life as a commuter. So I wasn't living there, but I was going there to tend to the farm that I was establishing at that current time. Because of that, I could dip my toes into the countryside without being turned off, and I could control what my interaction was with the community and so on.
Now, I followed you for some time online. Life seems busy to say the least. And you appear to embrace all aspects of life in the countryside and the opportunities that come with it, from farming, fishing, hunting, and more. I thought the easiest way to get a sense of your life there is to run through each season and what occupies your time. Now, we're speaking in March, so if you don't mind, let's start with today. What's daily life like this time of year, and what's been keeping you busy today?
This is a transitional period. The winter just ended literally a few days ago. Like, we can count down exactly when it ended. Today is the first warm day. We're repairing all the damage caused by winter. The fields are finally visible and there's no snow over them. Just before the first snows fall, we put something up called a yuki kakui, which is basically a snow shield. It's timber frames, and in between the frames, we put galvanized steel, or recently it's more like transparent plastic sheets. And that acts as a barrier. So when the snows from the roof come crashing down, they don't fall backwards and hit your glass and smash your glass. Right. So we have these yuki kakui around the house to protect the windows. So that's going to come off once we can confirm no more snows coming in. Other than that, it's just getting the fields ready, a little bit of tilling, removing some of the winter crops that are no longer functioning or performing, getting the land ready for planting season. Of course, the rice fields, that's a huge job to do. I haven't even seen the rice fields in a couple of months. So the snows have blocked the roads. So that's another big task to handle. This year I'm starting chickens, so I'm preparing a chicken coop at the moment.
Oh, terrific.
Endless stuff to do. And it always increases, it never decreases. The winter's finally over, so the energy level definitely increases a lot.
I know that you were up early today and down at the ports, because one thing which has occupied you over the last few months through winter, if I'm not mistaken, is fishing.
So yeah, Japanese fisheries are usually based out of local fishing ports. Companies can run fishing boats, but also individuals can also run fishing operations. The active time in my area is winter, when we get the best quality seafood runs. Fisheries they're so vast in Japan, as you know, as an island nation. There's so many types of fisheries, different seasons, different fisheries that specifically handle different types of fishing. In my area, in the Sea of Japan, in Miyazu, the overwhelming majority of fisheries can be classified as teichi ami, in English, fixed net fishing. Just picture a gigantic fish trap that's set in the ocean bed, about the size of a football field. And through various systems of netting, fish that hit the barrier as they swim along the coast, they're funneled into this trap. And once they get in, they can't get out. They're enclosed in another net. There's a system of nets. So teichiami boats that are specifically designed for these type of fishing methods, they have special arms that are set onto the decks. Every morning, all they do is they depart the port about 2 kilometers out to sea, where usually most of the fixed nets are. And these special arms, these roller arms, they just pick up the nets. The net is slowly picked up. The distance between the boat is diminished. So basically the fish are in front of you. And we use a long bamboo pole with a round net. We scoop that out and we put them into the hold, or we put them into cargo boxes. And that's transported back to the fishing port. So the fish, basically, from the time they're caught to the fishing port, there's no more than 1 or 2 hours of time. So it's the freshest type of fishing, I would say. They're not going out to sea for weeks and weeks and weeks. The fish are not even iced. They're just transported directly back to port and then immediately divided based on the sizes, based on types. They're separated by different boxes, and then they're put onto the various trucks that will ship them to various central markets throughout Japan. I go on these boats and I work on those boats as a net handler, and I help make sure the nets are picked up properly and they're funneled through the machines properly. And then I scoop the fish from the trap and we put them in the boxes. Then we separate them and sort them. So that's my job.
When you're out on the boats, what time are you leaving and how long are you out there?
Usually we depart the port around 6 a.m. Because they're fixed nets and we have to pick up the nets and there's a lot of rope work involved. We have to see the nets. So it's not a night operation. Right. We have to be able to see the buoys. We have to see the nets. So we need sunlight. But the earlier, the better. It's about 2 hours to pick up the nets and load all the fish. And then another 30 minutes back to port. And then maybe half an hour to 1 hour to load everything. So it's a very fast operation. It's maybe 3 or 4 hours. We're usually done by 10 in the morning. So it's great as a part-time seasonal winter job because you have at 10 a.m. you still have the entire day to do whatever you want. I guess the great benefit of it is that you get to take home as much seafood as you want.
Oh, yeah. A few beers on the dock at 10 a.m.
Freebies, a lot of freebies.
Yeah. Obviously very physical work. Is it particularly dangerous work?
It's not dangerous. Yeah, it's very safe because you're doing the exact same motions every single day. It's like archery. You're not doing random movements. You're just repeating the same motions and you're perfecting the same motions. It becomes muscle memory at some point. Although there's a lot of steps involved and a lot of moving pieces. Winter is good because of its migratory season for a lot of species we get here, especially tuna and sardines. These pass through the Sea of Japan and in great numbers. So what we aim for is when those runs come past here. And in a sense, it is more sustainable because once the run passes, it's gone. Like, we just catch a little bit of them when they come through, but they'll continue on. They'll go up to Alaska and so on.
And of all the fish that you bring in, what stands out as your favorite things to eat?
I would say two things. One, in terms of ease and accessibility and just use in cuisine, I would say squid. It's in great numbers and there's a huge variety of squid. It's not just one or two types. There's a multitude of different types of squid we get here.
Really?
And it's just easy to prepare and you can throw it in anything and you can store it very easily. The other, of course, is the king of fish, which is tuna. When the tuna come, that excitement, when you see them in the net, yeah, the adrenaline comes. And if the captain is in a good mood and we catch a good haul, of course, fishermen, we're able to purchase tuna as well. How many normal people in the city can have an entire tuna fish for themselves, right?
So that's the winter. So now jumping forward into the spring, as we said, we're now entering that period where you're getting ready for the growing season. And you've mentioned the rice fields around you. What else are you growing in your fields or other people around you? What's being produced in that area?
My main crop is koshikari rice. Most people also grow koshikari rice, but a lot of individual farmers might grow different types of rice, including mochi rice or rice used for sake. I am a contracted farmer, so the majority of my rice has already been determined in terms of who this buyer is. So I don't have to worry about selling. I know the price they'll buy it at, and I know who I'm selling to. My rice is actually contracted by a vinegar company. Other than that, I grow rice, of course, for my own use, and I sell it to my friends and family, usually through internet sales. I grow all sorts of things. Other than that, I have a shiitake mushroom farm in the forest area. I grow all sorts of vegetables, onions, garlic, butternut squashes, various types of pumpkins, satsuma imo, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, corn, various types of corn, basically anything you can think about. But most of them are small scale. Some of them I do sell locally at the Michinoeki, the roadside station, but most of them are just for myself, and I trade them like with my neighbors. You give me this, I give you that. So butsu, we call butsu butsu kokan. So people that we also kind of specialize in one thing, and we can trade that with our neighbors for something else. I'll trade you X number of kilos for corn for, 2 dozen, 3 dozen eggs kind of thing.
So exceptionally busy. So this is not a one-man operation. I assume that you have help with what you're doing out there.
In terms of farming, it's more or less a one-man operation.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, it's a one-man operation. I don't think of it as work. This is not for income as well. This is more of like a lifestyle choice. And then you're also reducing your food costs substantially by growing your own food. So although it's not translating directly in terms of sales, you're not spending money. Like when I go to the grocery store or the supermarket, I realize I'm not buying anything. I spend half an hour walking around the grocery stores trying to find something to buy, but I have that. You're substantially reducing your living expenses by doing farming and agriculture. But also what you can't get, you can also trade too. And in these small communities, trading is still a common method.
Yeah, it's a lovely aspect of life in those areas.
Yeah.
What experience did you have, Vince, before starting farming?
So I mentioned briefly that while I was living in Kyoto City, I had rented a kominka with farmland for a couple of years before COVID. So luckily, I was able to experience, what it was like to start a farm from scratch, like using an abandoned property, redeveloping that land, the land that was used to be filled with weeds and Suzuki, and cutting that all down, burning all of that, getting a tractor in to till all of that, turning unused farmland into arable farmland. So I went through that process, and then I was able to transition and use that knowledge in my current Minka property. I would recommend people look into shared farm, even in urban areas, just to get a sense of how you do it.
I also want to ask about sunsai. So sunsai is wild vegetables, mountain vegetables. That season's about to start.
It's just starting. I just saw some fuki come out, endless takenoko, and you can do a plethora of things with takenoko. Sansho is huge in this area too. Takenoko is bamboo shoots. Even within bamboo shoots themselves, there's various types of bamboo, and they kind of sprout at different times, and they have different sizes and different qualities. So different bamboo shoots are used for different types of cuisine. So you can make different things with them. Sansho is like a type of peppercorn. It's a unique pepper plant. It makes your tongue tingle a little bit numb. It's used in Chinese cuisine quite often. It's used in high-end kaiseki restaurants in Kyoto often as well. Definitely try Sansho.
I love it. And I said sunsai is starting from now, is it emerging from the melting snow? And then I assume that very soon, obviously, next step is to prepare the rice fields. The rice is planted and grows through the summer. What keeps you occupied through summer, and when do you start thinking about harvesting?
Summer is hot anywhere in Japan. It's slightly more bearable in this area compared to Kyoto City. Like I wonder, how did I survive in Kyoto City with that heat level? But here in this area, it's a little bit colder, so. I wouldn't say cold. It's more bearable. You're still sweating as soon as you get out of the house, but you're not melting at least. So you just have to be hydrated. Wear a lot of protective gear in terms of insects. There's you don't want to get stung with various type of insects like abu and bees and wasps. Summertime, the busy period has finished, but I would call it maintenance period. It's weed season. It's when weeds reign supreme. They just pop up everywhere. And if you have a large property and you're cutting weeds every day, by the time you get to the end of your property,
you gotta go back to the start.
Where you started, the weeds are coming back. So it's just endless. So you're just endlessly just cutting weeds. So I have a weed whacker. I have 2 weed whackers, backpack type, in my K truck. It's loaded all the time during the summer. I don't even take it out. It's just as soon as I have a little bit of free time, immediately just cutting weeds.
It makes you wonder what they did before those things existed back in the day, just having to cut it all by hand. It must have been just a
good question. I mean, just the kama by hand. I have no idea what they did.
Yeah. That's always been my impression looking around the farmers around us, that summertime, I mean, they're always busy, but summer does seem like a little bit of a slower season, and they can take a bit of a chance to take a breather, enjoy their couple of cans while sitting in the tray of their white truck just looking over the fields before things start to ramp up again in the autumn, or at least around here, which is the harvest.
So planting would be golden week for us, and rice harvest is more or less mid to end of September. In some places higher up in elevation, maybe even the beginning of October. Everything's gold. All the fields are gold.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. The air is turning a little bit crisp. You're losing some of that humidity from the summer, so you know it's time for the harvest.
How much of what you do varies between years in terms of the seasons coming earlier or later?
Well, we communicate within the community with the other farmers. Every year, the harvest might be a little bit early, might be a little bit late. So there's a general window of harvest. Especially for rice, we have a rice mill. So the rice mill is operated during the autumn period only. So they'll open for 2 months. During that time, a lot of the farmers, including myself, we work there part-time. So we're operating the mill as well. So not only are we harvesting our own rice, we're also processing that rice at the mill.
And where you are, I mean, I think it's well known that a lot of Japan, especially regional Japan, is struggling with population decline, which obviously affects farming communities because farms in Japan are typically family run. What's it like where you are? Are you on the younger side of people doing what you do, or is there a real variation between?
Overall, of course, the population is in decline. We're in a valley. And in the valley, there's about 3 main villages in the same valley. We consider them one big village, but they all have their own separate kind of councils. The one by the seaside at the bottom of the valley has about 120 people. The one in the middle, where I live, has about 30 people. And then the one in deeper part of the mountain of the valley has about 10 to 15 people. So the population is considered very small. There's a lot of land. So every year, as the population decreases, managing the land becomes more difficult. Farmers quit. They get too old just to be able to carry out duties as farmers. Young people are very few and far in between. For example, I mentioned my particular village. There's about 30 people living in my village. About 5 of them are over 100 years old. And there's only one child. People in their 30s, there's about 5 people. And I would say that's quite common throughout all these small villages throughout Japan. But there is a push and pull too. There is an abnormal, and I would consider ourselves lucky in the fact that there is an abnormal increase in urbanites moving to the countryside too. So although the general trend is, having this very high aged society, we have these kind of randoms coming in. So, for example, myself included. There are urbanites moving in here too. And there's a small community of urbanites, and we all support each other, moving out of the city into the countryside and just taking over Akiya and getting into farming, getting the fishing, getting the hunting. So even though the overall trend is an aging population, there's a glimmer of hope. My job also as an ijusha, as a urban migrant, is also to help others discover this potential and discover the beauty of living in the countryside and hopefully make the transition permanently.
I'm following you online, if I'm not mistaken, as you move into the autumn and into the early winter. This is when the hunting season begins where you are.
Correct. So once the harvest finishes, usually we're busy kind of just selling, winding down most of the farm, doing one last round of planting for the winter crops. This is the time when animals are active, and this is the start of hunting season, early winter. So that's when, legally speaking, hunters are allowed to start hunting. Even regardless of the hunting season, our village communally has deer and boar and other animal prevention tactics. We have box and cage traps set up around the villages where farmers inspect them, and we report to hunters to take care of any animals that are caught. Having a box cage also requires maintenance. Sometimes animals go in. We have bait inside the cages. So they'll eat the bait, but they'll be able to escape before the door closes or before they hit the tripwire. So that bait has to be changed quite regularly. And sometimes they'll hit the wire and the cage door will go down, but they're able to escape before the door closes. So then we get to reset the traps. So these type of activities farmers actually handle. And it's actually not the hunters that do these things, because we're on site every single day. And hunters have a lot of other duties too. And they have multiple cages to trap. Each hunter has a maximum of up to 30 cages they're legally allowed to register. So imagine just checking 30 traps every single day. That takes a lot of time. And if you catch 2 or 3 animals per day in those cages, that involves a lot of afterwork as well. In fact, a lot of hunters are actually farmers. So it transitions from farming to hunting. So for those people who have active hunting licenses, who are part of the Ryoyukai Hunting Association, they'll tone down their farming activities and they'll shift mode into hunting activities. In the winter season, you can expect one hunter to catch maybe 50 up to 80 animals per winter season.
And I know that hunting is quite strictly controlled in Japan. Am I right in thinking, Vince, that you mentioned that you're in the process of applying for your license?
That's correct. I'm involved with the inspection of our village traps. I do butchering of animals too, but the actual act itself, we call shimeru, so finishing the animal and setting up the cages, the traps, it's only allowed by registered hunter. So I'm applying for my trapping license this year. So that will allow me to set up my own traps and also hunt on my own land. Although there is a loophole for farmers, there's a loophole in terms of pest control measures. Farmers are allowed to install a very specific type of trap called a kakoi, where it specifically targets deer and boar and not other animals. So technically you can still trap without a license. But yes, I also am planning to apply for a proper trapping license. And some people have gone beyond that now, so they have, gun licenses. There's different types of licenses, not too different from like a scuba diving license. You can train for different things.
The game that's available to you in that area, the animals that are being trapped or hunted there, what stands out to you as favorites to bring home and to cook up?
The vast majority is deer, just because a number of them and they cause the most damage. Catching one deer immediately is the best way to protect your land, protect your crops. Deer are lean, they're active, there's very little fat on them, they taste great. Boar are a little bit less common in my area. Throughout the last 4 or 5 years, there's also been tong cholera, which is kind of wild boar cholera, which is a type of disease that has been affecting a lot of the adult population. So their numbers have naturally diminished due to disease, but they're making a comeback now. And there's certain rules within the hunting community that you're not allowed to transfer boar meat beyond prefectural borders, just to,
I didn't know that.
So the disease doesn't spread. But yeah, I eat boar. I would say avoid the summer boars. The winter boar, when they put on fat, it's very nice, very tasty. A lot of places, they have botan nabe, which is a very fatty type of boar that's used for nabe in the winter. But the best meat is bear meat in terms of taste. And also in the wintertime, when they put on fat, that's the best time to get them. And they grow fat off eating vegetables off the orchard. Probably my favorite personally.
I've been served bear several times here in Nagano, and it's actually very, very nice. I wasn't quite sure when it was first put in front of me, but I like what's referred to as jibie, wild meat in Japan. Yes. I like it in general, and bear really is. Yeah, it is very nice to eat. That time of year, through the autumn into the early winter, I imagine again it's a season for preparing for the winter to come. Not long before you're onto the boat. So when does the fishing season for you begin?
We're setting up traps, and there's a peak period throughout hunting. But once the first snows fall, once the snow gets too thick, the animals kind of merge back into the forest. So their numbers actually diminish, but then we focus on the ocean. Although the ocean's open 24/7, the boats I work on specifically generally starts in February. We do our daily runs every day once the trap is set up. It's a daily thing. If you don't pick up the traps, the fish are swimming in there, and they can't escape, and they just build up. So there is this kind of a rush, but also a duty to pick up those nets as soon as possible. You can't just leave them in there. So yeah, once February rolls around, then fishing is going on almost full time every morning.
Which rounds out the year very nicely, bringing us back to March, where we began. So we've been running through your life, Vince, today, season by season, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I know that you are busy. But to take a step back for a moment and to look at your life in general there in rural Kyoto Prefecture, how much has it met or challenged your expectations of what it would be before you moved there?
I was lucky that I did have dip my toes into rural experience through my rental of a Minka property while I was living in Kyoto City. So I had a sense of what to expect. So it made the transition much easier. But for anyone who's considering making a full transition, like myself, from a total urban experience to a rural lifestyle, I would say the difficulty isn't in learning rural skills and rural lifestyle. The difficulty is leaving urban responsibilities and structures and networks and the system, basically. You have loans, you have contracts, you have various things that you're connected to. It's scary to cancel or leave those things. But in a good way, once you make your mind on doing it, then, you're like, oh man, crap, what do I do? And it puts you in this mode, like you have to survive. So you're pushed to learn new skills. And when you find your place as your base in rural countryside, you'll find out that a lot of neighbors are more than willing to lend a helping hand, to teach you things, to lend you items. That comes easy. It takes a lot more courage to leave the city. So in terms of expectations, I didn't have too much, and it's still an adventure. Every day I'm learning new things. And I think that's the main difference between living in the city and the countryside, is that literally every day I'm learning an entirely different type of skill that I would never expect to learn. While if I'm living in a city, it's just day to day, every day is the exact same thing. So in a sense, there's a lot of excitement for me to live in the city. But are you the type of person that enjoys that? Do you appreciate that? That's a different story. That depends on the individual's personal motivations and their personality, basically. So if you like that, then yeah, that's great. Then countryside living will be very rewarding. But it's tough too. Get ready to overcome these obstacles one at a time. It's not all, I mean, I paint a very nice picture of living in the country. Obviously, there's a dark side, there's downsides too. Like if you don't like insects, then you're screwed. Sorry. Like this is just one giant, your roommates are insects. So I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, you paint a very attractive picture of it, and your online profile even more so, just in terms of the way that you present it. I think it is a fantastic lifestyle. I admire anyone who pursues and doing what you have done. One of the reasons for starting the podcast was to encourage, firstly, people who are coming to Japan to travel, to get outside the cities and travel into these beautiful regional areas. But if you're already here and living in Japan, perhaps in Tokyo or Kyoto, to consider moving out, because I think there's a really fantastic lifestyle to be enjoyed. Obviously, there are pros and cons to any decision like that. I mean, these are old communities, and old communities tend to have a lot of politics. I'm sure that's a factor. A final question, though, in that regard. In terms of Japanese ability, what level do you think someone needs to really take on the lifestyle, or a similar lifestyle to what you have?
To move to the countryside, to implant yourself in the community, to find a property, I would say it takes minimal language ability. You don't have to be a Japanese citizen even to purchase a Japanese property. By being here and appreciating the countryside and experiencing the countryside, yeah, you don't really need to have language ability per se. But to go beyond that, to be part of the community, then you do need to be able to communicate, and especially you don't want to live just within a bubble within the community. So yeah, if you can be in the countryside, but if you want to flourish, I would say, to be part of the community, then you do need a certain amount of communication skills. For example, I'm working part-time on the fishing boats. Like if you don't speak Japanese, then I cannot picture how you can work on a Japanese fishing boat, obeying orders from the captain and learning rope work and all the various commands and so on. So for long-term people that are aiming to live permanently or long-term in the countryside, just learn Japanese. That's all I can say. There's no real way around it.
No, it's good advice. It's good advice. Look, Vince, I'm conscious of the fact that I know that you are busy and I've taken up a decent chunk of your time today. I want to say a very big thank you for agreeing to speak with me. As mentioned, I have followed you for some time, your profile, Kyoto Insider, on Instagram. For anyone who has not seen it, there will be links in the show notes. I really encourage you to get on and follow Vince, especially if you are interested in this type of lifestyle. I think there's a lot to be learned through following you on there. So again, mate, thank you very much. And if you are up in Nagano at any time, let me know. I always put on an open offer to my guests for beers or anything else I can do to say thank you. And if I'm down your way, I'll let you know, because I would love to meet you face to face at some point and check out that area. It does look very, very beautiful. So all the best with the year to come.
Thank you very much, Peter. It was a pleasure.
That's it for today's episode. Again, a very big thank you to Vince for agreeing to speak with me and the images provided. You can find him on Instagram as Kyoto Insider, while the Minka Preservation Society website is Minka, that's MINKA, society.com. Links are, of course, in the show notes. The podcast website is outlandjapan.com, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube by searching Outland Japan. My name is Peter Carnell. This has been Outland Japan. I'll be back with the next episode in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, bye for now.